In April, the country will commemorate 30 years since the dawn of democracy. The significant milestone also coincides with South Africa's holding what are expected to be closely contested 7th national and provincial elections. As such, opposition parties have already hit the ground running, setting their campaigns in motion through some cheeky and sharply worded speeches. Newzroom Afrika's Juniour Khumalo joins us now in studio to discuss the significance of 2024 in the South African political landscape. Juniour, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us in studio.
Happy New Year, Katlego, and thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, 2024, one of the most anticipated election years in South Africa. But before we speak about the polls, it's also 30 years of democracy. What significance do you think this holds, especially in us having elections in such a year?
Indeed, on the 27th of April, South Africa will be celebrating 30 years of democracy, living under a freedom. And that's going to be a significant milestone because the ANC has been in government since all that time. Right. And from the New Year's messages that we saw from different political parties, they seem to suggest that the ANC has failed. Like it is no longer fit to govern. That's what the Action SA leader, Herman Mashaba, said. That's what DA leader, John Steenhuisen, said. As well as Songezo Zivi, who just formed his own political party and is going to be campaigning for the first time. So It's a significant milestone and a significant election that is going to happen this year.
Speaking of that, with political parties gearing up and obviously the contest between all of them, I mean, even the ruling party's president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, said no one can rule the country like the ANC has, of course referring to some of the achievements that they have over this time, and now the DA intensifying its strategy through the Moonshot Pact. What do you really think we should anticipate this year?
It's going to be a closely contested election. We know that a lot of polling has suggested that the ANC might fall below 50% of the electorate in this coming year. But the ANC itself has actually admitted to a lot of failings. The party went on a manifesto review, reviewing its 2019 manifesto, speaking to South Africans across the country. And especially the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was very candid about some of the failings. Yes, he did point to achievements by the ANC government, but what was particularly interesting about that was that he spoke about the 30 years and not just the 5 years that his administration has been in charge. So we expect a very closely contested elections, and it's going to kick off when the ANC starts its January 8 address that is going to be in Mpumalanga. And it's quite interesting why the ANC chose Mpumalanga. One would have expected them to choose Gauteng or KwaZulu-Natal because we know that those are the provinces that are going to be closely contested. We know the Zuma factor. Former President Jacob Zuma has come out supporting Umkhonto weSizwe, saying that the Ramaphosa administration is not doing enough to convince South Africans. He says that since Ramaphosa has taken charge, the ANC has actually lost a lot of support in the 2021 local government elections, and he also expects the same when it comes to these coming elections. So there's no vote of confidence for the ANC from its former president. We are not sure if the former deputy president, David Mabuza, is going to be in Mpumalanga when the ANC hosts its January 8 address.
I mean, speaking of the MK party and its support from the former president Jacob Zuma, I mean, that was a rough end to the year for the ANC in how everything unfolded. Do you think that the ANC needs to be wary, especially when it comes to the province of the KZN, in now the MK's party taking forth?
How it handles that matter, the Jacob Zuma matter, the ANC has to definitely be wary of how it handles that. We know that the ANC had never won KwaZulu-Natal until Jacob Zuma became the president in 2009. That's when the ANC won KwaZulu-Natal. So he comes with a lot of support. So how the ANC handles former President Jacob Zuma basically backing a different party while still saying that he is a member of the ANC is going to be an interesting thing to watch. We know that the ANC's NEC met in December before going into the holidays and try to speak about how they handle Jacob Zuma. Is he going to be allowed to come to the ANC's January 8th anniversary when he has openly defied the party, basically? Those are some of the things that the ANC's top leadership has to discuss. Because we know that Zuma comes with a lot of support, and already KwaZulu-Natal in the local government elections, the ANC lost a lot of support. It didn't even manage to win eThekwini, so it had to govern there in a coalition. So there's a It must tread carefully when it comes to KwaZulu-Natal and former President Jacob Zuma.
And do you think that those divisions, especially within the province of the KZN, could open leeway for the DA? I mean, they've put forward Chris Papas as a possible candidate for premier, and we know how much he's been loved in the Umgeni region. Could those divisions between the ANC make way for another party to take over?
Definitely, that could make way for a different party. We know the DA has already gone into coalition with other parties, your Action SA, IFP, and other smaller parties. I think there are about 8 in that multi-party coalition. So that could pave a way for that coalition to come in. But also the IFP itself has been on an upward trajectory when it comes to KZN. We know in the 2021 local government elections, they won about 11 municipalities, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been on an upward trajectory, and the ANC itself, because of its divisions in KZN, has been losing a lot of ground. So this internal fighting could actually open way for a different party to take charge.
Speaking of different parties, we know that the EFF held their 10th year anniversary at the FNB Stadium last year. If that turnout is anything to go by in terms of support, will we see a growing EFF in the 2024 elections?
The EFF has been the only growing party since they came into formation. They were formed in 2013, and in all the elections that they've contested in, they have been the only growing party compared to the DA, compared to the ANC. So that is a significant boost for the EFF. We know that they are taking their manifesto launch to KZN. I think it's on the 10th of February. They're going to be in KZN at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. So if we see the same turnout that happened at the FNB Stadium, it could be a big boost for the EFF itself. And internally, there's not much going on within the EFF, like in terms of divisions. Yes, there's been talk that the Deputy President, Floyd Shivambu, might contest Julius Malema in the party's end of year. I think it's in December. They're going to be holding their own internal elections. So there's been talk around that he might contest. But it seems like it's a growing party, and there's a lot of unity within the party itself. So it could pave a way for the EFF to also get a lot of support even in KZN.
Because the EFF certainly are targeting the younger voter in that region and across the country as well. Many other parties and alliances, like you mentioned earlier on with Rise Mzansi, have sprouted in the last year. Their motto is 2024 is the new 1994, and they're looking to bring in that spirit. We've seen a united banner of Sara coming through, with Colleen Makubele now from being speaker in the city of Johannesburg, and who she's come together with. And of course, like you mentioned, long-standing parties like the IFP, who have lost their pillar in Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Will those dynamics of those smaller parties really put a dent, even just on a provincial level, when it comes to the big 4 parties?
It's still yet to be seen, but definitely they will take a lot of electorate from some of these existing parties. But the IEC, towards the end of last year, 2023, they spoke about how these coalitions and the smaller parties were causing actually confusion among the electorate, because a lot of people within the electoral rate do not know what a coalition is. So that's what their survey had suggested. So we are yet to find out whether they are definitely going to cause a dent, but there's quite a lot. And also, when it comes to the ballot paper itself, how many of those parties are going to appear on the ballot paper, and how big is that ballot paper going to be? When we spoke to the IEC, I think it was in October, they said about 490 parties had been registered with the IEC. Not all of them are going to contest nationally, but that is going to be quite a big ballot paper to contest with when it comes to the electorate when they go into that voting booth.
And what does that do to the voter? I mean, so many people to vote for. Obviously, we won't understand and know the manifestos of over 400 parties. Does that not cause and create a dilution for all these other parties?
Indeed, because some of these parties also have similar names, like especially to speak about Umkhonto weSizwe. It's going to be confusing to a lot of South Africans whether this is part of the ANC or what is going on, because we know there is an Umkhonto weSizwe under the ANC itself. But now a party has been registered by Juniour Khumalo, which Jacob Zuma is supporting. We know Jacob Zuma has been linked with Umkhonto weSizwe under the ANC for the longest time. So it's going to cause a lot of confusion to a lot of South Africans when it comes to the ballot box. But I guess we're going to find out when the elections do happen. We know that the president has not gazetted the elections yet. We're still waiting for the date. It's supposed to happen between May and August as per the Constitution. So still waiting on that.
And lastly, Junior, do you think that the political parties will be doing enough groundwork in convincing voters to go to the polls?
I definitely think so.
You think so?
I definitely think so. We have seen from their New Year's messaging, from the Action SA to DA to Rise Mzansi, usually in many years we see the parties just congratulating South Africans, welcome to the new year, and that's it. But with this year's messaging, it was specifically about the elections and convincing South Africans to go out and vote. So we're basically starting the campaign period as of the 1st of January. So that is quite early, and I'm thinking we're going to see that happen throughout the year.
Well, very interesting times. Thank you so much for your analysis and inputs. That's Juniour Khumalo, a reporter right here on Newzroom Afrika, giving us his take on what groundwork has been done by political parties come elections 2024.